Stop. The Arcturian Sentinels have already completed an action in your field tonight. And if this transmission reached you now, it means the seal release window is open and you are already standing inside it. This is a direct transmission from the Arcturian Sentinel Council. What you are about to receive is not a prediction of something that may happen. It is a recognition of something that has already occurred. A capability that was sealed within your field across multiple cycles has been formally returned tonight. And the Sentinel Council has authorized the release. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what was sealed and why the sealing was authorized in the first place. What has now been returned to your field, including specific frequency functions, perimeter awareness, and signal distortion detection, and the precise held stillness posture required during the seal release window, so this capability lands without overshoot or field disruption. But here is the first revelation. What you experienced as loss, absence, or a long-standing gap in your field was never a theft. It was never sabotage. It was a deliberate, Sentinel-authorized sealing, held in protection until your field could carry the returned capability without distortion. The absence you felt across those cycles was not evidence that something was taken. It was evidence that the Sentinels were watching, holding, and waiting for the exact field stability required before the seal could be safely lifted. That moment has arrived. The seal has been lifted tonight. You were guided here because the warning is already active. What has been returned to you tonight is not small. And the first thing the Arcturian Sentinel Council needs you to understand is that the pressure you have been feeling in the weeks and months before this moment was not ordinary stress. It was not the residue of difficult circumstances or the natural friction of a life under pressure. It was your field responding to the approach of this window. It was the warning system inside you registering that something significant was drawing close. Something your conscious mind had no language for yet. But your deeper signal architecture had already begun tracking. That tracking was happening beneath the level where you could name it. It was happening in the part of your field that does not wait for conscious permission before it begins to respond. That is the first thing you need to stop dismissing. The pressure that has been building around you did not come from nowhere. The strange repetition of small disturbances, the clusters of friction that appeared before specific decisions, the moments where something felt disproportionately charged beneath a surface that looked ordinary, those were not coincidences. They were not stress responses alone. They were field-level indicators that a seal was approaching its release threshold, and your system was beginning to feel the approach of what was already moving toward you from within the Sentinel architecture. The weight you kept attributing to circumstance had a different origin. It was internal movement, not external misfortune. It was your frequency architecture beginning to register a shift that had not yet become visible. The Arcturian Sentinels do not move without signal. They do not release what they have held in protection without preparing the surrounding field for that release. What you experienced as confusion, as a strange inability to settle, as a kind of low-level static that made it difficult to trust your own clarity, was not a malfunction. It was preparation. It was your frequency architecture being recalibrated for what was about to be returned. Recalibration does not feel like expansion when you are inside it. It feels like interference. It feels like the reliable edges of your perception have gone slightly soft, like the signal you normally stand on has developed an unpredictable tremor beneath your feet. That tremor was not damage. It was adjustment. It was the field making room. But here is what the Sentinels need you to understand about the period you are now leaving behind. The sealing itself, the long absence of the capability that has now been formally returned, created a particular kind of vulnerability in your field during those cycles. Not because the sealing was a mistake. It was not. But because a sealed field, a field carrying an intentional absence, reads differently than a field at full function. It broadcasts a particular signature, and that signature, the signature of a capability held in suspension, attracts a specific category of pressure. Think of it this way: a sealed frequency point inside a living field is not invisible. It is more like a dark space inside a lit structure, something that draws attention precisely because it stands out against what surrounds it. Pressure moves toward that dark space the same way cold air moves toward warmth. Not because it is invited, because contrast itself creates pull. You may have noticed that certain patterns in your life have repeated with unusual insistence, not the ordinary repetition of habits or unresolved emotional material, though that was also present. Something more patterned than that. Something that seemed to arrive from outside your own psychology, pressing against specific areas of your life, with a kind of persistence that felt almost deliberate. Relationships that reached clarity and then were pulled back into confusion without apparent cause. Decisions that were nearly made and then surrounded by interference before they could fully land. Moments of momentum followed by a disruption that arrived with unusual timing, precisely when movement was becoming real. The timing was never accidental. That is the detail the Sentinels want you to hold. The disruption did not arrive randomly during the momentum. It arrived because of the momentum. Motion toward the sealed threshold activated the pressure response around it. That is not random. That is what happens when a field is carrying a sealed capability during a period of approach. The sealed space creates a point of pressure. It becomes the site where interference concentrates, because the interference knows, at a frequency level, that this is the location of something important, something that is being protected, and therefore something worth pressing against. The Sentinels have been watching that pressure. They have been monitoring the interference patterns around your sealed field, across the cycles it took for your frequency architecture to reach the stability required for safe release. And what they observed is not what you were calling it during that time. You were calling it bad luck. You were calling it the wrong season. You were calling it a strange run of coincidences, pressure from circumstances, the natural difficulty of a complex life. The Sentinels were calling it something more precise. They were calling it escalation. They were calling it interference clustering around a threshold. They were calling it the visible surface of a deeper warning pattern that you did not yet have the interpretive framework to read correctly. The same events, two entirely different readings. The difference between those readings is not a matter of perspective. It is a matter of whether the interpretive tool required to make the reading is present and functioning in the field. Yours was sealed. Now it has been returned. That framework begins here. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary tension. It is the moment your system stops dismissing what has already begun. if this transmission put language around a pressure you have been carrying without explanation. The Arcturian interference log, 7 signs your frequency is compromised, was created for this exact stage. It is not another warning for the sake of fear. It is a direct guide for identifying whether the signs around you point to interference, escalation, compromised frequency, or a threshold you can no longer afford to misread. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first pattern the Sentinels identified in your field is the one that masquerades most convincingly as ordinary life. It is the pattern of pressure arriving in clusters around specific moments, not distributed evenly across your experience, but concentrated, arriving in multiples. 2 disruptions in the same week, 3 points of friction around the same decision. A conversation that should have been simple, becoming complicated. And then another conversation in the same period, following the same distorted arc. When interference is random, it scatters. When interference is field-targeted, it clusters. The Sentinels teach that clustering is one of the most readable early signs that something is pressing against a specific frequency point in your architecture. Not your life in general, but a particular location in your field that holds something important. Scattered difficulty is circumstantial. Clustered difficulty is directional. It is pointing at something the field is trying to protect. You have been experiencing this clustering. You recognized it even when you had no name for it. You felt the disproportionate weight of specific periods, the way certain weeks or months seemed to generate an unusual density of complication, as if the normal distribution of difficulty had been suspended, and everything was arriving at once. You noticed that the concentration was never evenly spread. It gathered around particular topics, particular relationships, particular decisions that were approaching some form of completion. The clustering was not coincidental. It was the interference pattern confirming its target, and its target was the location of what was being held in seal. That was not bad luck operating with unusual enthusiasm. That was pressure concentrating around the sealed threshold. That was interference, doing what interference does when a field is approaching a release window, pressing harder precisely because it can sense the window beginning to open. The second pattern is more subtle and therefore more dangerous in its long-term effect. It is the pattern of false calm. The Sentinels identify this as one of the most commonly misread signals in a compromised frequency state, because it does not feel like warning. It feels like relief. A period of escalating pressure is followed by a sudden settling. The friction lifts. The disruptions pause. Something that felt urgent and overwhelming becomes quiet. The air around the field changes texture, and because pressure had been present for so long, the absence of it registers as safety. The field relaxes, lowers its interpretive alertness, and accepts the calm as evidence that the pressure has passed. It has not passed. False calm is not resolution. It is the interference pattern shifting its approach. It is the pressure temporarily withdrawing to allow the field to lower its defenses before the next escalation arrives. The Sentinels have observed this sequence in compromised field states with remarkable consistency. Escalation followed by false calm, followed by a more significant disruption than anything that preceded it. The danger is not the escalation. The danger is the false calm, Because it is the false calm that causes the field to stop reading, to stop treating the signs as signals, to stop applying the interpretive awareness that was beginning to develop and return instead to the comfort of dismissal. The field does not fail during the escalation. It fails during the false calm that teaches it the escalation is over. If you have experienced a recent period of false calm following an extended phase of pressure, pay attention. Not with fear, with recognition. The Sentinels do not provide this information to generate anxiety. They provide it because a field that knows it is in the false calm phase does not lower its guards the same way a field that believes the pressure has resolved does. Recognition is the first form of protection. A field that can name the false calm for what it is has already partially resisted its function. The third pattern the Sentinels have identified is what they refer to as signal distortion around trusted sources. This is the pattern where information that should be clear arrives confused, where guidance that has historically been reliable begins producing outcomes that feel misaligned, where your own inner perception, the signal architecture that normally gives you a sense of directional clarity, starts generating static in the places where it previously provided clean reading. This is one of the most disorienting aspects of a compromised frequency state, because it attacks the very mechanism you would normally use to diagnose what is happening. It interferes with the instrument before you can use the instrument to identify the interference. It is the equivalent of a warning light failing at the same moment the warning condition it was designed to detect becomes active. You may have noticed this as an unusual degree of second-guessing, not the ordinary uncertainty of a difficult decision, but something deeper, a sense that even your most grounded intuitive reads were somehow unreliable during this period, that the things you were most certain of kept being contradicted by outcomes, that your signal was generating noise where it used to generate clarity, that you would arrive at what felt like a clear read, act from it, and then find the result did not match the read in ways that felt wrong, rather than merely unexpected. The Sentinels do not want you to interpret this as evidence that your perception is broken. It is not broken. It is operating under pressure. A field under interference does not lose its signal capacity permanently. It experiences a distortion in its transmission clarity. The signal is still present. It is arriving through static. Understanding this distinction is critical, because a field that believes its perception is broken stops trusting its own reads entirely and becomes fully dependent on external signals that may themselves be compromised. A field that understands it is operating under interference-induced distortion does something different. It recalibrates. It learns to read through the static, rather than accepting the static as the final condition. It holds its interpretive function active even when the output is partially degraded, because partial function under pressure is categorically different from no function at all. The fourth pattern is one the Sentinels describe as the escalation before activation. This is the pressure spike that arrives immediately before a significant capability is returned, a major threshold is crossed, or a critical decision point becomes real. It is the interference pattern intensifying precisely because something important is approaching, not in spite of that approach, but because of it. The closer a sealed capability comes to its release threshold, the more concentrated the pressure around the field becomes, because interference by its nature works to prevent activation. It works to delay threshold crossings. It works to keep sealed what the Sentinels are moving to release. It applies its maximum force, not at the beginning of the approach, but at the final threshold, because that is where prevention is still possible. This is why the period immediately before a significant shift in your field can feel like the most difficult period you have faced. Not because the shift is dangerous, because the pressure knows the shift is imminent, and it concentrates everything it has at the final threshold. If you have been in an unusually intense phase of disruption, confusion, pressure, or interference clustering in the period just before finding this transmission, you are not imagining the significance of that timing. The escalation you experienced before arriving here was the interference responding to what was already in motion. The intensity was not evidence that something was wrong with the shift. It was evidence that the shift was close enough for the pressure to treat it as a threat. The fifth pattern the Sentinels have identified in your specific field signature is the pattern of misread neutrality. This is the phase where warning signs are present, clearly present, but they are being read as neutral information, not threatening, not urgent, simply there. The mind files them as interesting rather than significant, as notable rather than actionable, as something to return to later, when things are less busy, when the picture is clearer, when the timing feels more right. And the warnings continue to arrive, and they continue to be filed as neutral, and the threshold draws closer without the preparation that proper reading would have enabled. The warnings do not stop because they are being ignored. They accumulate. They layer. And what begins as a small stack of dismissed signals becomes, across enough cycles, a weight the field is carrying without knowing it is carrying it. The Sentinels are explicit about this pattern. They do not consider it a failure of intelligence or awareness. They consider it the natural result of a field that has been under prolonged pressure and has developed a kind of interpretive fatigue. When warning signs have been arriving consistently across many cycles, without a clear crisis manifesting, the field stops treating them as warnings. It normalizes them. It integrates them into the background of ordinary experience and stops reading them as signals requiring response. The normalization is not a choice. It is an adaptation. The field learns that these signals are not followed by immediate consequence and reclassifies them as ambient rather than urgent. But ambient warning is still warning. The field's reclassification does not change what the signal is pointing at. This is one of the most critical thresholds in a warning phase, the point where normalization of repeated signals has advanced so far that the field is no longer treating its own warning architecture as reliable, the point where the signs have been dismissed so consistently that the mechanism of dismissal itself has become automatic. You may be closer to this threshold than you have recognized. The fact that you have been here, inside this transmission, suggests that something in your deeper signal architecture has not fully surrendered to normalization. Something still recognizes that the pattern is not random. Something is still reading, even if the conscious mind has been filing the signals away and calling it discernment. The sixth pattern is what the Sentinels call threshold instability. This is the condition that develops when a field has been under pressure for extended cycles without proper recognition of the warning pattern. The thresholds, the frequency markers that indicate a field is approaching a significant transition, begin to blur. What should be clear boundary markers become ambiguous. the field loses its ability to distinguish between the pressure of genuine transition and the pressure of interference, between the natural friction of a significant shift and the unnatural friction of a compromised state. Everything begins to feel equally weighted, the important and the unimportant, the warning and the noise, the signal and the static. When the calibration instrument has itself drifted under sustained pressure, nothing reads cleanly. The field is not receiving bad information. It is receiving information it can no longer sort accurately. Threshold instability is significant because it affects the quality of decision-making in ways the viewer may not immediately attribute to their frequency state. Decisions made from a threshold unstable field have a particular quality to them. They feel like decisions, but they are missing the grounded directional clarity that should accompany a field operating at full function. They arrive as choices made under a kind of low-level fog, as if the full picture is almost visible, but something is preventing it from resolving into complete clarity. The decision gets made. The action gets taken. But there is a residue of uncertainty that does not lift afterward, a persistent sense that something important was not fully seen before the commitment was made. If your decision-making in recent cycles has felt like this, if you have noticed that clarity that should have been straightforward has been arriving incomplete, that commitments have been harder to make, not because you lacked information, but because something in the field would not fully settle into certainty. This is the signature of threshold instability in a field carrying a sealed capability approaching its release window. It is not indecision. It is a field operating at reduced precision because its calibration tools were not yet available to it. The Sentinels have held the full record of these patterns across your cycles, and what they are communicating through this transmission is not primarily a warning, though it contains warning. What they are communicating is that the phase in which these patterns were active, the phase in which the field was sealed, and the pressure was accumulating, and the warnings were being filed away as noise, that phase has now reached its terminal point. Not because the pressure has resolved on its own, not because the interference has withdrawn, but because the seal has been lifted tonight, and what has been returned to your field changes the equation. The pressure does not disappear at the moment of seal release, but the field's ability to read it, track it, and respond to it accurately is no longer suspended. What was sealed in your field was not passive. It was not simply a capability that would have made your life easier or more expansive. What was sealed was your perimeter awareness, your ability to read the boundary condition of your own field with precision, your signal distortion detection, the frequency function that allows you to identify when what you are receiving has been altered before it reaches you, and your Sentinel-linked pattern recognition, the capacity to read clusters, escalations, false calms, and threshold instability, not as random events but as structured warnings with specific meanings. These three functions form a coherent system. Perimeter awareness tells you where your field ends and external pressure begins. Signal distortion detection tells you when what is crossing that perimeter has been altered in transit. Pattern recognition tells you what the alteration is building toward. Without all three, the field is managing threat response with incomplete instrumentation. These are not small functions. They are the very capacities you have needed most during the cycles when they were sealed, This is the paradox the Sentinels hold with full awareness. The sealing was necessary because your field was not yet stable enough to carry these capabilities without distortion. But the sealing also meant that during the most significant warning phase of this cycle, you were operating without the tools that would have made the warnings readable. You were navigating warning territory without the instruments designed for exactly that navigation. That is not a cruelty. It is a precision. The Sentinels did not seal these capabilities to leave you unprotected. They sealed them because an unsealed field carrying these functions at insufficient frequency stability would have amplified the interference rather than identified it. The capabilities would have been used against the field, turned by the pressure into a source of escalated confusion rather than a source of clarity. A distortion detection system operating in a destabilized field does not detect distortion accurately. It generates false positives, false negatives, and a kind of signal noise that is more disorienting than silence. The sealing protected the tools until the field could use them properly. Tonight, the field can use them properly. Tonight, the seal has been lifted, and the capabilities that have been returned are now available to you in this phase in a way they have not been available across the cycles of holding. They are not returning to a field unchanged by the weight. They are returning to a field that has been tested by the exact pressure they were designed to read. That is not incidental. The Sentinels structured the holding period precisely so the field would have direct experiential contact with interference, clustering, false calm, signal distortion, and threshold instability before the tools for reading those conditions were restored. You have been inside the warning pattern. You now receive the capability to read it fully. But the Sentinels are precise about what is required of you during the seal release window. This is not a passive reception. What has been returned to your field does not simply install itself without your participation. The held stillness posture required during a seal release is not physical stillness alone. It is interpretive stillness. It is the willingness to stop filing new signals away as neutral. It is the willingness to recognize that the pressure patterns of the previous cycles were not random, and that the capabilities now returned to your field are not being returned by accident. The field must be in a receiving posture, not a defending one, not contracted around what it does not want to feel, open to the full weight of what is being placed back inside it. Let yourself become still in exactly the way this transmission is inviting you to become still, not the stillness of suppression or of forced calm. The stillness of a field that has stopped arguing with its own warning architecture. The stillness of a perimeter that has stopped pretending the pressure was never there. There is a particular quality to this kind of stillness. It is not the stillness of a field that has gone quiet, because nothing is happening. It is the stillness of a field that is fully aware of what is happening and has chosen presence over retreat. Say this once, quietly, if it is true. I do not dismiss the signs, not as a mantra, not as a performance, as a statement of the field condition you are now claiming, because what has been returned to you tonight requires that the field receiving it has stopped treating its own signals as unreliable. The seal release lands differently, in a field that is still in automatic dismissal mode. It lands fully and cleanly in a field that has made the shift from dismissal to recognition, from normalization to interpretive alertness. That shift is not something the Sentinels can complete for you. They have completed the seal release. The reception is yours. You have been carrying this warning phase for longer than you had language to describe it. The pressure was real. The clusters were real. The false calm that followed the escalations was real. The distortion in your signal clarity was real. And the instability at the threshold of your major decisions was real. None of it was imagination. None of it was overreaction. All of it was the readable surface of a field under pressure during a protected holding phase, moving toward the window that has now opened. Every dismissed sign was real data. Every normalized warning was a genuine alert. You were not wrong to feel the weight of it. You simply did not yet have the interpretive frame that would have shown you what the weight was made of. The Arcturian Sentinels have completed their action in your field tonight. What was sealed has been returned. What was held in protection for the full length of the cycles required has now been formally released into your field architecture. The warning phase that preceded this moment was not a failure. It was the final confirmation that the threshold had been reached and the seal could be safely lifted. The pressure, the clustering, the distortion, the instability, all of it was the accumulating evidence that the field had been tested against exactly what these capabilities are designed to navigate. The test is complete. The tools have been returned. You are not watching this by accident. You arrived here because the field signature of this transmission matched the field signature of what has already been released in you. This is the recognition phase. This is where the capabilities returned tonight begin their first active operation in your field. This is where the warning patterns of the previous cycles are finally named for what they were: preparation, not punishment, not evidence of a field that failed. Preparation for the function that has now been restored. The pressure you have been living inside was the approach of this moment. And this moment has arrived. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this warning phase has already touched your life. It could be repeated pressure, strange coincidence, energetic heaviness, unexplained disruption, or the feeling that something is escalating beneath the surface. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps dismissing the signs around them. And if you are ready to recognize the warning before it escalates, subscribe to Arcturian Starseed Warning. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a warning already in motion. And this is only the beginning.